This video will discuss the causes of the Civil War in Ireland, which took place from 1922 to 1923. When Sinn Féin was established, Arthur Griffith wanted to combine what he saw as the most positive aspects of both constitutional and revolutionary nationalism. This meant that Sinn Féin encompassed different forms of nationalism which had different opinions. People mistakenly blamed Sinn Féin for the Easter Rising. This meant that when the rebels received public sympathy after their executions, Sinn Féin gained popularity. This boosted their reputation and meant that new Republicans joined, including De Valera, who was a commander of the Rising. De Valera had a major influence on the direction of Sinn Féin policy. At the first Sinn Féin Ard Fheis, De Valera was elected president of both the Irish Volunteers and Sinn Féin, showing the unity of this broadly based movement. A new Sinn Féin constitution was drawn up, which was a compromise between moderate and extremist views. It stated that Sinn Féin aimed at securing the international recognition of Ireland as an independent Irish republic. Having achieved that status, the people of Ireland would be free to choose their own form of government. This shows that they favoured republicanism, but it was ambiguous enough to hold together all elements of the nationalist movement. Sinn Féin won a convincing victory during the 1918 general election. They had appealed to all groups of nationalism through their ambiguous constitution, from Home Rulers to revolutionaries. Their victory in the election seemed to provide a mandate for a republic, and some volunteers interpreted the result as a mandate for violence against the British for denying a small nation the right of self-determination. This led to the Anglo-Irish War of 1919 to 1921. The Anglo-Irish War exposed the divisions within Sinn Féin, between the hard men and the politicals. These tensions were largely due to its broad base and the combination of the political party and the Irish Volunteers. There was disagreement within Sinn Féin over the guerrilla tactics. Some saw themselves as military men and were uncomfortable with the assassinations. Many of the volunteers also resented the input of the Dáil and refused to accept their authority. De Valera's Custom House initiative in May 1921 angered Collins as it lost many weapons and was a military failure. De Valera's fundraising in America gave Collins and the volunteers a chance to dominate in Ireland. This dominance and violence shocked De Valera when he returned. The Government of Ireland Act was another cause of the Civil War. It was a long-term blow to Sinn Féin as it led to permanent partition, ruining their main aim of an all-Ireland nation. The key cause of the Irish Civil War was the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Negotiations had taken place in London, mainly between Michael Collins and Lloyd George. De Valera did not go as he did not want to compromise on the Republic. Collins and Griffith knew the treaty would split Sinn Féin, but were willing to argue its merits. De Valera was annoyed that they had signed the treaty without consulting him, describing it as an act of disloyalty. On the 8th of December, the Cabinet voted in favour of referring the treaty to the Dáil, 4 votes to 3. Before the Dáil could meet, De Valera issued a proclamation outlining the Cabinet split and stating that he could not recommend acceptance of the treaty to the Dáil or to the Irish people. The Dáil's debate on the treaty opened on the 14th of December. On the 15th to the 16th, the key issue of national status was discussed. De Valera produced his alternative to the treaty called Document No. 2. It was based on the idea of external association and removed clauses on dominion status and the oath. The treaty split Sinn Féin in two, into the opponents and the supporters. The key opponents were De Valera, Brugha, Stack and Childers. Their two main reasons for opposing the treaty were the oath of allegiance, which was unacceptable to them as they would have to be faithful to the king, and secondly, that they believed it was not an honourable settlement as it gave Ireland less real freedom than other dominions such as Canada. The key supporters were Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith. They also had the support of the Catholic hierarchy and the press. Their key reasons for supporting the treaty were that the Irish delegation had not negotiated for a republic, but for the best they could get for Ireland. It gave Ireland equality with England and gave Ireland some freedom, according to Collins. Its acceptance was the only practical and sensible course, and Collins believed that it should not be voted against without a practical solution of how to win more concessions. When the Dáil reassembled on the 3rd of January 1922, Collins proposed a way forward which would prevent the split on the treaty becoming any more pronounced. Those opposed should abstain so that a provisional government could be set up and make a new constitution. The oath would then be to the Free State instead of to the Queen. De Valera rejected this, intending to introduce a revised version of Document No. 2 and have the Dáil vote on it instead. Griffith brought matters to a head when he released Document No. 2 in its original form, undermining de Valera's position. De Valera responded with a bitter speech on the 6th of January. A decision was finally reached on the 7th of January when the treaty was accepted 64 votes to 57. De Valera resigned as president but ran for re-election against Griffith, hoping that he could sack the pro-treaty cabinet members and start a new attack on the treaty. However, Griffith won the vote 60 to 58. He set up a new cabinet, but real power now lay in the provisional government, set up on the 14th of January and led by Collins. This group had to implement the treaty. The treaty divide had created an open split in the Sinn Féin movement. The Civil War began in June 1922 and continued until May 1923. Historians believe that the treaty's signing was the decisive event which had led to the Civil War, as it exposed the divisions within the movement.